Everyone, and welcome to another Centra podcast. Today we have with us Jim White from ENSESO for Food. Thanks for being on today, Jim. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks, Quade. Nice to meet you.
Well, we're super excited to hear your insights from your company, things you've learned throughout your career. But to start us off, could you tell us about ENSESO for Food, how you started it, and what it's all about?
Yeah. Incesso for Food. I actually had been working with the platform TrackKey on a different application where we were tracking methadone from opioid treatment programs. That project had moved on to a different phase, and my colleague Kreshmir, who's one of the co-founders with me, they had entered the TrackKey solution into the FDA's low-cost food traceability challenge in 2021, and they were one of the 10 winners out of 100 different companies. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, Jim, we think we have a good solution. The U.S. is rolling out this new rule. The FDA is rolling out this new rule called FSMA, or Food Safety Modernization Act 204. We have a solution that we think addresses it super well, but I don't have really a market development resource in the United States. So we founded ENSESO for Food. So the company that builds TrackKey is called ENSESO, which stands for Enterprise Serialization Solution, or it's an acronym for that. ENSESO for Food is the food application on that platform. And so from there, we began to do our investigation into the marketplace, kind of understood the impact of the regulation, who the players are in it. And we quickly realized that FSMA 204 is a really significant, has significant implications for the whole end-to-end food supply chain in the United States, because what has to happen is everybody from the farm and the fisherman, from the start of where the food comes from its source, all the way to the last place where it gets sold. So the grocery store, the restaurant, food service, you eat food on an airplane. There has to be traceability from where you bought or consumed the food all the way back to where it came from. And what it means is that everyone has to pass information. All these businesses have to pass information to their trading partners up and down the supply chain. So it's a really it's a cool application, and it's a really big big ask for the industry to do it. And so that's where we're targeting, and we've been starting to focus on certain parts of it because no company can handle it all.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's, a lot of data to track, a lot of bits and pieces that, maybe a smaller company can't necessarily handle all themselves. You kind of described the problem and solution in a great way. I want you to take it, let's say I'm a small business and that's handling with food. What's your pitch to me? Why is this important for me? And what does this product and service look like on my end?
Yeah, so let's break it down to a couple of real examples, because the small businesses tend to be on the two ends of the system, right? So on the front end, you have farms and fishermen. And there are some big farms and there are some big fishing operations, but there's a lot of small, farmers. There's a lot of small fishing operations, landing, first landing, aquaculture centers, those sorts of things. And then on the far end of it, all the food services places, there's a lot of small markets. Every restaurant you go into has a duty with regard to FSMA 204. So if you go into a pizza parlor, they have a responsibility. So what's in it for them? We're first of all, we're helping small businesses meet FSMA 204 requirements and to build customer trust. And what we're solving is one of the things that the small producers have is they lack tools, especially on the harvesting side. That's what we call the beginning of it, the primary source of the harvesting side. That's your farmers or their fishermen. They don't have a lot of digital tools. They keep a lot of paper records. If they have a system, almost always the only system they have is QuickBooks. And so TrackKey simplifies traceability by recording their KDs and their LAC codes and helping them to do data sharing. And they don't need an IT department, to get there.
Very, very interesting. When they have this system built, as technology increases, as a lot of things change, this data is playing a very big role for companies, and you're helping manage that. Now, you've touched on it a little bit, but how does this data and what you guys are providing really change, their operations? How does it benefit them?
So what a lot of people don't realize, I'm going to focus a lot on the harvesting or the primary source. What a lot of people don't realize is they're keeping a lot of records already. They have all kinds of certification requirements, and there's regulations all over the place, and for their own purposes. But for the most part, they're doing it on paper, right? So FSMA 204, as a rule, basically says, hey, you have to share. You don't just have to hold them. You have to share this information with your who you're selling your food to. And so, as a consequence, there's a very specific format. So our system collects that and puts it into takes what were analog records and creates digital records. That has actually been really eye-opening for our customers because, a lot of people will say things like, "Oh, that." In fact, when we started it, what a lot of people said is, "Oh, you'll never get farmers to do that. They hate technology and that sort of thing." And the reality of it is, when we go into them, what we find out almost every single time is like, I always kind of knew I should be doing it. I just never had a really good, specific, concrete way, tool, or reason to do it. FSMA 204 gives that to me. And once I started doing it, I get all these peripheral benefits for it. So once I put my records into digital, so I harvest. So for example, that's one of the critical tracking events is a harvest. I harvest and then I cool it and I pack it and I keep track of those records. When I pack it, all of a sudden I have an inventory. I have a digital inventory. I have these cases are in my cooler. I can see them. I see how much volume I have, and that helps me on my sales side, because and so without that, I have it in my head, or maybe there's pieces of paper around, but I really have really good information. And as I ship it, I know how much I have left because our system keeps track of that sort of thing. So they get this inventory. The other thing is, you have the digital world and you have the real world. Part of the rule is you have to link together. If in a way, what we're doing is we're creating a digital twin for the food, right? So there's this digital like baseball card for a harvest, 50 cases of broccoli, right? Then what you have to do is you say, well, which 50 cases are that lot? Well, you print out a label and you put it on the box with the lot code on it. And so printing out labels was something they've always had to do. That was always really hard for them. Our system just kind of churns them out. They're properly formatted. They have the right numbers on it and that sort of thing. And so as the food moves up through the system, you can look at the case and you can associate it with the digital record that you got sent to you. So if you're a harvester and you do field packing and you send it to a repacker who's going to repack it for grocery stores, they know what came from where and they can see it on the box and that sort of thing. So it improves your relationships with your supply partners, with your trading partners, who are like, wow, okay, you're giving me information and traceability that I can use so I can do my part with the data following that.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys give a lot of great tools to make the physical world a lot more simpler, and more organized. And I feel like a lot of companies they build this great product, but then they got to go out and sell it. Find people to sell it to. Now, how do you guys get in contact with these people that need your tools? How do you get new customers?
So, so the rule has been published for about 4 years, and it wasn't required to come into place until January of next year. Okay, and so you start to just let people know you have something, and as the awareness starts to raise, so we would talk to a lot of ecosystem. There's a lot of people who kind of support farmers, and so we would make them aware of our tool and show it to them, and then they would then the farmers would call us and say, hey, you guys were recommended to us. So so there's, for example, extensions, right? So every college, every state has usually an ag school that has farm extensions. Well, those guys are out there. Their job is to help farmers be compliant with rules, right? Certifications and that sort of thing. So we outreach to them so they are aware of our tool, so that when the farmers are looking for a tool, they make those recommendations. That's one of the ways. And then, of course, word of mouth. The thing that's really exciting about this particular segment is part of our system, because you have to share data with your trading partners. part of what you put into our system, the master data, is, okay, tell me your locations, tell me your products, but tell me who your suppliers are and tell me who your customers are. And so for example, we have a customer who's a shrimper in Beaufort, South Carolina. He has 160 trading partners. All of those people will become aware of that he's using our system as he sends them data, right? So there's kind of a network effect that happens with this particular rule, because they have to receive the information that he sends them. So he's going to start sending him data, and the question they're going to ask is, what do I do with this, right? And we're building into our system basically a thing that says, you need a system. If you don't have one, you can use ours. And here's a link, and here's how you join.
Very, very interesting.
Technically, you don't need a system. The rule doesn't require you to have a system, but you need a system, right?
Yeah. There's not too many, places where you could. You guys are attacking the top of the ladder in a way. You're talking to people who are talking to other people. You've really set up this spreading effect, which is genius. Have you guys ever tried going to individual companies and you found that just there wasn't as much success, or what's the story there?
So we do, and we're actually working on some channels, right? So for example, there's a company called SGS. SGS is the largest testing, inspection, and certification company in the world. They're out of Switzerland. They are using our TrackKey platform as their FSMA 204 food traceability platform. So they're bringing their customers to us, right? So they already have relationships with them for other things. They're doing auditing or certifications or things like that. And so they're saying to their customers, hey, how are you dealing with FSMA 204? And they go, I don't know, we haven't thought about it much. Then we start the conversation. So we're getting customers that way. And we're opening up some other channels. We're working with we're bringing on a partner who is involved in inline packaging printing, because that's one of the places where you got to get these labels printed. In order to print the labels, you have to have the data that's coming out of a system like ours, right? And so we're starting to open up channels like that. Consultants are another one. Right now, a lot of companies are still in the phase of planning their implementation, and at some point in time, they begin to source the software solution that they need to use to implement their FSMA 204 program.
Yeah.
So we have we have a direct to customer channel on our SaaS platform, and that's kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, kind of organic in that it's kind of like, once you get on it, then you kind of share it with other people. It's a network effect kind of model, and then we have these channels to reach certain segments, big enterprise customers like SGS and some of these other channels I've been talking about.
Yeah, brilliant strategy to target companies that are going to touch hundreds of other companies. You're kind of you're having them do the marketing for you in a way, which is great and easy for you guys.
Yeah, well, we're a small company. We don't have a lot of reach. And I'll tell you something about this market that I'm not sure everyone's completely processed it. It's probably about 4 million businesses, not just in the United States, but all over the world, that have some responsibility to do FSMA 204. So for example, all the food that comes into the United States, that if say shrimp, that is aquaculture shrimp, that's from India or China or Indonesia, those aquaculture ponds, they because they're aquaculture, they do harvest too. If it's wild caught, they would do a first landing, which is a different CT. But the point is, all those fishing operations all over the world, they have to start this, collect this FSMA 204 data and send it to their trading partners. That's why we did that with SGS, because they have 92,000 employees all over the world. We would never be able to reach those people. And so that's that. By the way, something like 80% of our seafood in the United States is imported. Almost 50% of our produce is imported from Mexico, South America, Canada, that sort of thing. So, it's a global opportunity. And so there's 4 million businesses that need to do something. And a lot of them are very small and unsophisticated, have very little digital kind of stuff. So ease of use is a really important part of an attribute of a product like ours.
Right. I'd love to touch more on that ease of use part. As you guys have gotten more customers, as laws have changed, there's a lot of things changing in your industry. How do you continue to make things easy to use? How do you continue to create a great customer experience for your customers with all these changes?
Um, Fortunately, because it's a regulatory thing and there's always a slowness to adopt, we're actually able right now to be very intimate with our customers. So we're actually still learning from them and listening to them and watching their workflows. And so we feel really good about our solution in the harvesting segment, in the co-op, and in the packing segment, and in the seafood segment. We're moving towards some people more on the distribution side of things. We've had a lot of conversations with people on the retail side, but they, quite honestly, they really can't implement anything until they're getting data from their supply chain, right? So we're following the data. The primary source guys, they are the non-contingent creators of the information, and then we just follow the hops as the food goes through the system, and brings on more people, which gives us an opportunity to kind of tweak our solution for these different subsegments. Because the reality of it is, for example, if you go to a farm, a regular farm, their operational tempo is actually pretty low. They they plant, say, 4 or 5 commodities in a season in their farm. They harvest. So in a given day, they may harvest one field of one commodity. That's one transaction in our system, right? Maybe they do two. So they do a couple of and then they do some shipping and receiving, and that's it. You go to but where that food ends up, it's going to a produce distributor. They're bringing in 19,000 cases of produce at 6 a.m. and by midnight, it's all gone. It's all been shipped. So they're turning over 19,000 cases every single night. So that's a completely different operational tempo. So you have to start to integrate with their warehouse management systems and their pick systems and that sort of stuff. And so those are things we do by having a first customer, kind of a lead customer in a segment. We work through those things, and then by the time you get to the second or third customer in the same segment, it doesn't change much, right? There's little unique local things, but you know what to do. So, and you know, so that's the model. You just kind of you go from customer to customer and kind of learn what they need. And like, we're writing new software all the time. So the thing is, our we're really a platform, right? Underneath it is a serialization platform that's been around a while that handles um, this platform's deployed in Europe for the EU tobacco directive. We've done billions of transactions tracing packs of cigarettes, right? And so we've just taken that database, put a different front end on it to track food through the system. So we can write front ends really fast, leveraging the database and the way the organization of the data is. That never changes. So
You guys got a lot of great ways you're handling this problem for your customers, and I like how you're starting, at the source. You guys are learning as you go. You're learning, you're building for those later customers as these new laws develop. Once these new laws develop, I mean, you guys are gonna have a lot more people wanting to come to you and things like that. And you have a lot of opportunities for growth. How do you see growth playing out in your company, and what challenges do you see with?
um, yeah, I mean, scalability. So fortunately, the product does not have a challenge of scalability, right? The biggest barrier we see is the customer onboarding. So there's a phase in all the customers onboarding is setting up their master data, right? And so that's things like what locations, what products, the product IDs, all these things. The customers we're dealing with today, um, the volume of that's pretty small. The harvesters, like I said, hey, I've planted 5 different commodities, so I have 5 products. I've got tomatoes, broccoli, whatever in my field right now. I have 10, I have 10 fields on my farm. I have 4 coolers, blah blah blah. It's not a lot of volume, uh, but we see that. But just to do that with one customer, hours of setup. So we're looking at implementing some AI tools support that, where we we don't have to be as involved in the process. We let like a bot kind of guide customers through building their master data up. And and then of course in other companies, there's all kinds of data all over their system, and kind of figuring out how to scrape that data out and reorganize it and make sure it lines up with the right data format to be compliant with the rule that we have that we're trying to follow. So we're going to start with onboarding on the harvester side, and then we'll apply those kind of tools at different parts of the supply chain.
Yeah,
One thing, a decision we have to make is how far do we go? I mean, we have all the critical tracking events that, harvest, pack, first land, cool, ship, receive, that everybody requires from the restaurant. But do we want to be horizontal across the whole thing, or do we want to focus on a particular vertical space? Right now, a lot of our focus is on what we call the fragmented people at the end. And, we like the small customer who, doesn't have a really super high pace operational tempo. And the small one at the other end who's just doing really simple tasks like receiving the food, like what happens in a food service or a restaurant.
yeah, makes sense. With you guys taking those steps to scale, having to more build the manual part of it is very, very smart. Implementing AI tools, that's a thing a lot of businesses are struggling with. So it'll be very interesting to see how you guys, play that out. Now, we've had a great overview of your whole company. Let's say, I'm a farmer, I'm seeing this video, and, I'd love to see what you guys got, see how to work with you guys. What would be the process for me as a farmer to connect and make that a reality?
So right now, the main way we're doing is you set up an appointment. We get on a meeting just like this. We log them into our tool and show them. We'll show them a farm that already exists and show them what it looks like, and they all recognize it. Oh, I see that. Yeah, 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 I got that. I got that. And say, okay, if you're interested, we'll set this up for you, and then we'll start to create your environment by putting in your master data um, for the system. And I mean, we've onboarded. We start out with this is an hour-long phone call. Usually, what we do is we start them in our sandbox and let them kind of play around with it a little, make some mistakes, and then we'll coach them through it. And then eventually, they say, "Okay, good. I think I got it the way I want it." Put it into production. Our first customer, we probably spent maybe 2 hours with them, and they have been using it I say every single day because they don't work on some of the weekends, but they use it almost every day. They do a handful of transactions every single day on that thing for the year. We've had a handful of phone calls, and those have almost always been about, hey, if you could do something like that, that would be really helpful. And we'll go ahead and build a new feature and for them. And so it's really been, easy for the customers. And in fact, in some ways, they're better at it than we are. They know almost our software better than we do in terms of for the things that they do, you know. Like they'll tell us, hey, you could do this. We go, I didn't know that. I didn't think it would work that way. So, um,
Well,
yeah,
I think
so
that's really
it's,
great. You guys built a software so easy that, I mean, you maybe do a little bit of handholding at first, but I mean, would you say that overall it's a very easy and situation to adapt to for these business owners?
yeah, that's the number one reaction we get from it. Is it's like very intuitive. It makes a lot of sense. It works the way we want to work. It simplifies our paperwork. I mean, the main thing that we really wanted to listen to was that because we were really, really concerned. We went into this really concerned that there would be all this resistance to using the computer in this space. And quite honestly, within a week or two, they're like, this is way better than what I was doing before. And the thing, like the first thing they really see is, man, I get labels and they're easy and they just come out of my system and they're right. And it's like, this was something I spent maybe an hour or two a day on trying to get labels to come out of the system that print it right and, were correct. And all of a sudden, if I take care of this kind of like, what did I do? Which, by the way, those are records I was already keeping. I have harvest logs. I have these things, and I have to have them for the audit when I get for my certification audits. And in fact, one of our customers, the first customer I talked about, they had a gap audit, and they had been a customer for a week. The auditor was like, "What do you do? How do you have this?" And they said, "Oh, you want to do a mock recall?" Boom, boom, boom. They go, "Show me where this case is," and they type in the serial number, and it's over here. And they went and showed it to them. They go, "Wow, that's crazy." So usually those guys have to sit around and watch people fish things out of, file cabinets and stuff and binders, right? And they're like, "Wow, this is awesome." So, and for them, that's like, hey, farmers think about dropping their certifications because those audits are so they wear them out. They got to do all this prep. They kind of stop doing things, kind of trying to dress up their, clean up their act, so to speak. And so all the tasks they do, it gives them an operational benefit, which is I did these things so I can get 100 labels out of the system, right? It took me 20 minutes and I got 100 labels. I needed 100 labels, no matter what. Even if I hand wrote them, I would need them. So this way they're like, these tasks over here are nothing compared to the output that I got. So it's a big productivity improvement for them.
Well, thank you so much, Jim, for coming on and sharing us, giving us some great insights into the industry, how valuable your product really is. Then again, to finish this off, let's say I'm a farmer, I'm someone handling with food, transporting something like that. Is there anything else you'd want to share to them or make sure, something that they need to know with regards to this industry?
Yeah, my number one thing is it's not as hard as it looks. We break it down. When you look at the idea of tracing food from farm to fork, it's massively complicated. But when you break it down to what do you need to do, it's not that hard. It's actually pretty simple. And once you tackle it, you realize, oh, I have all these peripheral benefits that I never had before, which is, like I said, I got labels that print out. I've got inventory. Because I did some basic tasks to be compliant with this rule, and I can give information to my supply chain. I'm better than all my competitors at that because I can do it so quickly and easily and cost effectively. It actually qualifies some of these customers to sell to different customers, right? If you want to sell to a big grocery store, they want traceability, but they also want local food. And the idea of buying locally usually means I have to compromise on stuff like that, and it's a tough call for them. So, and we think that the productivity and the information gives the farmer an opportunity to improve his stuff, lower his costs, become more efficient, maybe scale bigger, plant better, more effectively, that sort of thing. So we think there's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely sounds like it. Well, everyone be sure to give ENSESO for Food a check out. I mean, you guys are doing a lot of things from providing more data and to organizations to operations. I mean, you're making the whole process from farm to selling it a lot easier for these companies. So everyone be sure to check them out. As you said, the best place to check you guys out is the website. Where's your website?
It's ENSESO for Food, ENSESO, the number 4 food, FOOD.com. That's it.
All right, perfect. Well, we'll be sure to put that down in the description too, but everyone be sure to check that out. And Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yep, thanks. Thanks, Quay. All right, take care. All right, bye-bye.